We Catholics used to believe that angels governed all of creation. We no longer seem to believe this. Why? Whether he himself believed in it or not, Tolkien used this in his fictional world. There he called them the Valar. So that's at least one modern example of this ancient belief. Were it not for this in history books, I would never even have heard of this belief. That's how forgotten it is.
Well, you'd also find it in C.S. Lewis's space trilogy, Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandra, and That Hideous Strength. But, firstly, it's not correct to say that the Church no longer believes that, although it's quite correct to say it's not being taught. Like so many other things the Church teaches, churchmen very often are embarrassed, or, there are priests who've never heard of the Athanasian Creed.
Of course.
So, what the Church actually believes and what Catholics are actually taught by churchmen are not necessarily the same thing. But St. Thomas speaks at some length in the Summa Theologica of the role of the angels in governing the universe. And for a popularization of this, the Confraternity of the Precious Blood brought out a popularization of the Summa called My Way of Life, which is a title that has nothing to do with the Summa, but that's what it's called. One of the authors was a Father Healy, I forget the other one, but they're two Irish names, so you, Habsburg, should recognize the two Irish names. Anyway, no, St. Thomas certainly taught it, the Church Fathers taught it. It's not a matter of faith in the same way that the four creeds are, but it's a pretty much accepted thing by the generality of the Church Fathers and the doctors who follow them. Now, how does one reconcile this with so-called modern science? Well, frankly, I don't really see that there is any kind of a contradiction. We talk about gravity the way we talk about electricity. We don't really know what either of them are. We don't know what keeps the stars in their courses.
But those are laws of science.
Except when they aren't. You know, what makes the sun go supernova? I don't know. Neither do you.
That's been a critique of a lot of the physicists, is that they have so much leeway. I mean, they seem to... I don't know. I come across a lot of critiques of physicists when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's like, how can you say there's a soul when we know that the body dies?
Yeah.
Well, stop.
Yeah.
Why do my eyes move? Why am I not lying here dead? Well, because there's something in me that is animating me. In fact, even the phrase animating comes from anima, which means soul.
Mm-hmm.
Why, the fact that you can cut me and bleed me and take me into the doctors and examine me does not argue for or against my having a soul. It is kind of funny that everybody who dies loses precisely the same fraction of an ounce when they die, which leads one to wonder if that's the weight of the soul, but that's another question.
Yeah.
At any rate, so again, I think the reason why you don't hear it from churchmen is that they're afraid to sound superstitious.
Definitely.
They get very worried about how people who matter might think of them, like scientists.
Definitely.
But see, the problem with that is that it shows that a person who gets frightened like that doesn't understand a lot about science, or about religion, or about much of anything. Maybe he should get a job. I don't know. But seriously, no, I mean, people got very excited in the 60s, back when people ate aspic, just to take us back. Back then, people got very excited about Teilhard de Chardin, whom they saw as bringing science and religion together.
Oh, no.
And as was said at the time, well, he really wasn't much good at either one.
Yeah.
He did bring us the Piltdown hoax, so that's something. But the problem is that for moderns, many moderns, science has the same glittering appeal that truth did. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against truth either.
Right.
But the point is that it doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means. Science means knowledge. But scientists, if they're any good, admit that they don't know. They are seeking to learn. Ideally, science, unlike religion, will never have dogmas. Why? Because a dogma presumes that you know the absolute truth and veracity of what you are talking about. Therefore, the phrase scientific dogma is a contradiction in terms. By its very nature, the pursuers of science, by their very nature, ought to be very happy whenever any new bit of information comes along that illumines further whatever their course of study is. However, scientists are human beings like everyone else. And so they get attached to ideas, and they will defend them like a theologian will defend a religious dogma. They erect them into religious dogmas, and that, of course, is a large, this scientificism, as you might call it, is a large component of the religion of the West today, and, I'm sorry to say, of a number of Catholic clergy. I remember when the Shroud of Turin was subjected to carbon-14 dating, and the people who did so said, well, it's a medieval fake. The then Archbishop of Turin said, well, that's it. It's a medieval fake. He ended up looking like an idiot, of course, because the debunking was itself pretty well debunked. But it's that willingness to jump on the bandwagon with the men in white coats that characterizes that kind of cleric. And it's very, very sad. It's very sad. But at any rate, true religion and authentic science will never contradict each other. And if they appear to, the problem is not with either discipline, but with the person practicing the discipline.